This gift from God, the greatest thing I've got. This gift from God called today.
Thank you, Tommy. You know, what lays ahead? What are we going to do? Why doesn't God intervene and fix things? Now, these are questions I imagine the disciples found themselves asking after their teacher, their Messiah, Jesus, had been crucified, even after they had experienced his resurrection. You know, they had believed he was going to make things right in their world. He was going to be their liberator, the one to lead them to overthrow their oppressors and reestablish a kingdom of Israel to its rightful place. But things didn't happen that way. And it isn't clear to them what is theirs to do now. The tomb is empty. They had come to realize that their teacher is still with them, though not in the way he has been. And they're uncertain about what is theirs to do. They're confused. They're fearful. How are they going to move forward? You know, they find themselves in a time of great change, of transition, at a crossroads in their lives. You know, I can relate to that right now. Here I am, and in 9 weeks, I will retire from church ministry. And while I know I still have a relationship with God through my Christ self, and I know that the time is right for me to retire, I am unclear, uncertain on what is mine to do in the coming years. And I must say, I have some doubts and some fears that I might be doing the wrong thing, because I don't know what lies ahead. I don't know what is mine to do. And what about our world? What's it going to be like? You know, there's going to be a time when we re-enter into the world. But do we know what is ours to do? What is ours to participate in, bringing forth? You know, there's doubt, there's fear, there's confusion. There's uncertainty within me and in the world that I live. You know, we can't really help but ask the question sometimes, why doesn't God just fix this? Then I remember something that Eric Butterworth says that I truly believe in. God can do no more for us than God can do through us. And this is where I want to pick up the disciple story this morning. We'll be looking at chapter 21 of the book of John. Now, the disciples' lives have taken an unexpected turn. And they find themselves not knowing what is theirs to do, how to go forward. They don't even know what their relationship is with this risen Christ. They had shut themselves up in hiding out in fear of the outside world, where Christ has appeared to them twice, but has not told them what to do. And this is where the book of John originally ends. You know, most Bible scholars believe that chapter 21 of John is a later addition to the book. You know, wouldn't it be nice if the disciples had received clear, precise, written instructions? And this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you're supposed to move this movement ahead. But creation doesn't happen like that, does it? You know, and I believe this is what chapter 21 of John is all about. That it can be seen as a lesson in how to come into an understanding of what to do when we meet those crossroads in life, when we're experiencing a transition. So we begin chapter 21 of the book of John with the disciples standing on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And they really don't know what to do. You know, in the book of Mark and Matthew, the risen Christ has told the disciples to return to Galilee and wait on the Christ. Now in John, that's not said, but we find them there in Galilee, where it all began. It is where they first came into the presence of Jesus. So they find themselves back in life, standing on the shore. And Peter, and in unity, we see Peter representing that faith faculty in us, says, I am going fishing. You know, when I hear the term I am, I always think about the creative process, the creative power that is in us and in God. And so Peter says, I am going fishing. After all, they are fishermen. That's what they do. And they set off on the Sea of Galilee. Now, 6 other of the disciples agree to go with him. So 7 out of the 11 remaining disciples set out on the Sea of Galilee to go fishing. Now, when we talk about seas and fishing and unity, seas represents the seas of possibilities, where fish represent ideas. So they set out on the sea of possibilities, fishing for divine ideas. They fish all night. They catch nothing. Then, as the sun is rising, they see a presence on the shore. This presence speaks to them, saying, you haven't caught anything, have you? And they have to admit, no, we have not caught a thing all night long. So this presence gives them a fishing lesson and says, well, why don't you cast your net on the right side of the boat? Now, obviously, they've been fishing on the wrong side of the boat, because as soon as they cast their net where they were guided to, their net is full of fish. And it is at this time that Peter recognizes that the presence on shore is a risen Christ. And he immediately swims up to be in the presence of Christ. Now, the other disciples bring the boat and the fish to shore. Here, Jesus, or the risen Christ, has a fire going. And he has placed some fish on the fire. And he invites the disciples to pick some of their catch, bring it over to the fire so that they could prepare it and eat together. So they sit down and eat some fish. So I want to take a moment and clarify this story for you this morning. In other words, I want to tell you what it has revealed to me about what is mine to do and what is ours to do as we find ourselves in times of transitions, at crossroads in life. So what I find it telling me today is that in spite of my doubts, my fears, my uncertainties, when I find myself standing on the shore, pondering what to do, it is important that I be willing to step out in faith and to cast my net into the sea of possibilities. To understand that it is not my place to accept a fate that is imposed upon me, but to realize that I am to participate in creating my fate, our fate. But as long as I do so from my old way of thinking, the way I did things in the past, I will come up empty. But if I'm willing to listen and be open to that inner guidance within me, that Christ presence within me, that I will find that it will guide me to where to cast my net. And if I follow that guidance, I will catch an abundance of divine ideas. Divine ideas that when I come to assimilate them within me, I can choose from. I can choose from those that I catch. But it's also important to understand that God has some specific ideas that are mine to take in, to begin to express into the world. That I get to choose some, and God has some chosen for me. You know, this is a third time where the risen Christ has appeared to the disciples. When I see the number 3 in a story, I think about the creative process, mind, idea, and expression. That is the order of the creative process. And that as we move into a transition, it is important for us to understand that we participate in creating the new expression, the new world, where we go from here. You know, we talk often in Unity about divine order. And for those of you who join me on Wednesday morning for any length of time, you're going to say, well, he doesn't talk about divine order. But I do believe in divine order. I believe there is an order for creation, for the creative process, and that's mind, idea, and expression. What I don't hold on to is everything is in divine order. It is in divine order when we listen to that Christ presence in our lives. And we cast our nets to where we are guided. And it is there that we catch the divine ideas that will bring forth the divine expressions that are seeking to be expressed in our world. You know, the story does not end here. That after they eat, this is where Jesus, or the risen Christ, speaks to Peter. He says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, yes. Jesus says, tend my sheep. He asked Peter this 2 more times, a total of 3 times. Do you love me? Each time Peter responds with yes. Each time Jesus responds with an answer, feed my sheep, tend my sheep. Revealing to us that as we seek to move on in a time of transition, to realize that the divine ideas that we want to bring forth and express into our world are those divine ideas that are good for all, not just for ourselves, that we are here to give. You know, a way that this story has been interpreted metaphysically is that when they cast their nets on the left-hand side of the boat, they are casting them in the receiving side, and the right side is a giving side. And we realize what is ours to do when we begin to serve and give of ourselves. And finally, the chapter ends with Peter asking the risen Christ, what about this guy, this disciple over here? What are they going to do? To which the risen Christ says, you need to pay attention to what is yours to do. You need to seek to follow the Christ and not be concerned about the other person. They will do what is theirs to do. And the Christ has also told Peter that he must give up thinking that he's going to control this journey and surrender to wherever the journey takes him, as he commits to bringing forth those divine ideas that are his to bring forth. So as we stand on the crossroads, as I stand here in a time of transition, you know, it's my intention to set myself out on the sea of possibilities. I don't know what's out there yet, but to remain connected to that Christ presence in my life and let it guide me so that I catch those divine ideas that are mine. And I get to choose from those divine ideas what direction my life will go in, what's next, and what my relationship with God and the living Christ is.